At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Fresh kicks, spring tops, new dresses. There's always a score.
I mean, the denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Head to your Nordstrom Rack store to find can't-miss deals on all the spring things. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, the podcast for all things neurodivergence. I'm Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist and professional speaker, and I'm happy to be your host through the wild trails of the neurodivergent world.
And I'm Jake Noonan, educational coach and humanities teacher, your co-host and producer, and I'm thrilled to help share the stories and the experiences of wonderful people in the world of neurodiversity.
We're really excited for today's guest, which we are going to say a lot because we're always really excited about every guest we get. So let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerding Out on Neurodiversity. I am your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski, clinical psychologist, professional speaker, published author. We're very proud of that. Yay! And podcast co-host with my good buddy and coworker, Mr. Jake Noonan. Say hi, Jake.
Hey, everybody. Super excited to be here again, as I always say. And I'm going to just keep continuously pushing Dr. Matt that he is a published author, and we're overcoming that imposter syndrome together.
Yeah.
So
Gets a little better every time. I'm really excited about today's guest. Can I just tell you? Because when you put out like, hey, I have a podcast on the interwebs, some people are like, I should be on your podcast. And it's like, there is no reason you should be on my podcast. We've had to sift through a lot of that stuff. You know, I mean, I was never dating when the apps were a thing. But like, I feel like is it swiping left? Is that the good one or the bad one?
that's the bad. Well, depends on what you mean by good and bad. But
We've had to swipe left a lot, but I feel like with Mitch, we swiped right? So I identified myself as an old. I probably used all the terms wrong. But Mitch, we're really excited you're here with us today. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for the invite. I saw you're requesting for guests on the interwebs, as you so put it, and I wanted to come on. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for the invite once again. And I feel like a lot of good things can come from our discussion today.
Absolutely. Why don't we kick off that conversation by telling our audience what it is you do and how that fits into the broader neurodiversity world?
So professionally, I'm a full-time chief of staff for an oil and gas brokerage, as well as a real estate capital company. That is what you'd find on my LinkedIn and whatnot. But the main thing I'm trying to push right now is I'm also a published author. So welcome to the club, Dr. Zakreski.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's called Growing Up with Asperger's, Lessons Learned and Shareable Wisdom. Written by yours truly. It's in audiobook, paperback, and Kindle formats. And I was inspired to write it because I had a lot to say on my own experiences with autism, as well as advice I could give to people on the spectrum, as well as parents of people on the spectrum. Because hindsight's 20/20, but oftentimes foresight can be 20/20. So I feel like I had a lot to say on it. I feel like I have a lot of advice to give to everyone, and connecting with other folks that are either are on the spectrum themselves or are more on the academic and research side of researching autism and whatnot. I've been wanting to reach out and discuss with them and see what other insights I can learn as well from all sorts of folks.
That's so cool. And I want to, of course, like ask questions about the book and like what that process. But so you're a chief of staff.
Yes.
Now, this is one of those things that I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people are going to hear that and go, I can never be a chief of staff. I lack the executive functioning. But I have a feeling that you find a way to make it work for you. So can you like let us peek behind the curtain? Like, what does your day look like? How do you get through it? Like, that's really fascinating to me.
Yes. So I did sign an NDA, so I'm going to try to keep my answers as vague as possible.
Yeah. You don't need to spill any tea. We're looking for more like general strategies. I don't need to know where any of the bodies are buried. Not that there are any bodies, of course.
Man, putting me on the spot here, and you're assuming I buried the bodies.
I like you. I like.
A chief of staff. So I report directly to the CEO of the oil and gas brokerage and the real estate capital company. It's the same person. If you were to go to both websites that are of the companies that I work for, you would find that the CEO is the same person. And I meet with his key people that he wants me to meet with. And I help him with professional and personal projects regarding a variety of subjects. And then when I meet with his key people, I will ask them, hey, do you need anything from the CEO? Do you need a question answered? Do you need information on a project? Do you need a document signed? That's a big one. Like, there's a lot of moving parts with a lot of deals we do in the real estate world. And so there are constantly changing things. So it's like, hey, we need him to sign this document. And then 2 days later, it's like, hey, there's an incorrect date on the previous document you just had him signed. You need to sign him this version. And then, come tax season, that's huge because, if you need to submit your forms in on time, for the franchise taxes of the state we're incorporated in. Another thing is I provide the CEO with updates on oncoming projects from his key people where it's like, hey, we're working on this thing and it's dragging its feet. I'll let you know when I have actually something of substance to share. And then over here, it's like, okay, this ball is rolling. He needs to be aware of this because we have a deadline coming up or that he needs to make a decision on, or we need his insight before we take the next steps and whatnot. We need to meet with him soon on that and whatnot. And then sometimes when I meet with a key person, they will just say something like, hey, I need to talk to him about something that just isn't that pressing. And so I'll just filter that out towards the bottom of the priority list. And I'll just mention to them, hey, this person says he wants to talk to you about this. It's not pressing. You don't have to do it today or even tomorrow, but I just want to put that on your radar that this person is requesting an audience essentially. And then on top of that, I also do a lot of CRM management and database management. So that was what my job and kind of evolved into before I became chief of staff. And so those responsibilities I still do. And so I report to somebody else on that regarding CRM and database management and all the projects and reports and information and data cleaning that comes with that. So, the companies I work for are small. So I do wear a lot of hats, but the main one, and the one I'm most proud of is the chief of staff.
And just, I think, in case anybody in our audience doesn't know, what is CRM?
CRM is essentially a customer relationship management platform. So Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, Marketo, those are some big ones. eToro? I know there's like an eToro one and then there's an eToro one, but I'm trying to figure out which one is the CRM and which one is the stock trading platform like Robinhood. So I'm trying to not mix those two up. So yeah, like a CRM essentially tracks, hey, these are our accounts. These are who these accounts are assigned to, like the business development person, whatnot. Here's the activity. Here's the deals this person signed up for. Where's this deal at? Do we need to send a contract out? Has the contract been signed? And we're actually much further along than we initially thought. And so, how many phone calls are we making a day? How many deals are we getting signed up and whatnot? So it's all customer or client relationship management.
And this maybe get a little nitty gritty on this, but I just, as a neurodivergent person myself, and, obviously if you listen to this podcast are here to learn this sort of things, how you described your chief of staff job seems to directly go against two things that, broadly speaking, neurodivergent people struggle with. Being able to have like a triage of executive functioning, right? And also theory of mind, the ability to understand like, hey, this other person needs things different than what I need, right? Because I'm sitting there and be like, I don't know if I could triage that. I'd be like, and this person needs you, and this person needs you, and this person needs you, and this person needs you. Like, and treat them all as equally important if it's like the CEO's like kids' school calling, and also like your biggest vendor being like, we have lost 17 pallets of our product. So like, what's your process for like navigating those moments?
So the CEO is very good in saying he doesn't want weeds questions. What he means by weeds is that something that's very technical that he really has to get into the weeds on, where that question can be answered by somebody else. And the person that I spoke with probably just wants the CEO's answer on it. So we figured that out pretty quickly. And then just working with him to figure out, okay, what are your priorities and how can I assist in them? And so like he has told me, like, hey, if there's a document I need to sign, bring it to me. If I'm walking in the morning and you have stuff for me to sign, I need you to, barge into my office and put it in front of me. And then I'll just get my pen and sign it and whatnot. And then informing him of, it's like, hey, this person needs to be with you on this. It really depends on the urgency and how important it is. So figuring that out is crucial, because something I've learned is that sometimes the CEO is not involved in a certain project, and that he might be aware of it, but he's not involved in, because his attention is required elsewhere. So he'll just say to me, okay, thanks for that update, but that's not really something I'm involved with. So I don't really have any insight, or I'm not contributing to that. So it's really nailing down what the priorities are, what he wants, what he doesn't want. And then the other thing is, you have to learn the other personalities of the key people. Some can be a bit more abrasive than others. Some can be a bit more passive. And then, some can just be incredibly difficult to get a hold of. And if this is a key person, you have to, I have brought that up to the CEO a number of times. It's like, hey, this person is not recalling. I have emailed, called, and texted this person because we have weekly meetings. This person has not responded to either of them. We meet on Mondays, and for example, and it's Thursday. I bring that up to him, and the CEO says, okay, if this becomes a pattern, you need to tell me, because I've let this person know, hey, Mitch is my guy. You are one of my key people. So I want him to meet with you. And if you're not meeting with him, well, that's a problem. So what helped me a lot is having a consistent meeting time. Like, I called each of the key people and said, hey, when are you best available to meet on a weekly basis? Earlier in the week is better, like Monday and Tuesday. And then these people say, I can do Monday at blank. I can do Tuesday at blank. And then sending out calendar invites for recurring events, just so that way they know, hey, it's on their calendar. It's on their schedule. They know there's no excuses. And then I also need to be a great communicator. Like, for example, a few weeks ago, I was on vacation. And so I emailed everybody the previous weeks, every single key person I was meeting with, saying, hey, just FYI, we're not having meetings this week because I'm going to be out of town. If there's absolutely something you need to put in front of the CEO, email me, and I will put in front of him either the first day I get back, or if it's like emergency, I'll put in front of him while I'm out. And 9 out of 10 times, it's something that could wait till Wednesday, or it's not an emergency, or it's not urgent, but you have to communicate that. That way, if someone says, hey, I didn't meet with you on Monday, I can say, did you check your emails? Because I did say, hey, we're not having meetings this week. I sent this. So you need to practice what you preach, in my opinion, which is, hey, if I'm preaching, hey, you need to be a good communicator, I also have to be a good communicator.
And really, I think naming that kind of communication, like, I love that image of you be like, I need you to sign this, I need you to do these things, and your CEO honoring that and saying, yes, tell me the thing I need to do, and then get out of here, right? We call that meta communication, right? It's like talking about talking. This is how I need you to talk to me about these things so we get them done, and not dance through the tulips for 45 minutes. And then it's like, wait, I could have just handed you this paper 45 minutes ago. Oh, damn, that's a much better use of my time. I think it's so cool, Mitch, because you're putting these things that we talk about in our jobs a lot into practice. And I just think it's really cool to hear what that looks like in the real world. So thanks for sharing that. Now, Jake, I know you want to ask questions about the book. So look at him. He's like, soon he's going to stop talking and I can talk about the book because the book is really cool. So fine, go ask your questions about the book.
I actually had a different question first. It's not about the book.
Oh, look at you.
No, it's more about, like, I'm curious what your story is about how you got to where you are as well, because you're mentioning like all these really, really valid and important systems that you have in place. And knowing like so many people in my life and people I've met and taught that are neurodivergent in any form, knowing that that doesn't come easy or naturally, I want to know like what's your story of how you got to that point?
So I want to say it was like a trial of continuous fire, but it wasn't like a forest fire. It was more of like a simmering fire where it's like, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to feel better afterwards. It's kind of like going to like a sauna or something. It's like, hey, I need to sweat all this out. The heat's uncomfortable, but I need to do this, like after a workout and whatnot. So, I had trouble communicating with people ever since I was in elementary school. I can remember as far back then just being just not knowing how to handle a conversation and whatnot. But for whatever reason, just something about theater just spoke to me, like being on stage, getting to act, big gestures, big voice, the huge inflections and whatnot. Something about that just called out to me. And so I got my first experience with theater, I think prior to middle school, but I did theater classes, and that's when they were like, okay, when you're on stage, you need to stand a certain way. You need to speak a certain way. You need to look a certain way. You need to move a certain way and whatnot. And so that forced me to inflect, to make gestures, to widen, to change my facial expressions and whatnot. And that carried on into high school once again, which is like, okay, you need to speak a certain way. You need to not stumble over your words because your lines are this and whatnot. So, and then that carried over into college again. It sort of tied into college because my freshman year, it was a required course. I had to take public speaking. And the statistic, I don't know what the exact number is, but the famous statistic is most people in the US, their biggest fear is public speaking and whatnot. But since I had stage experience, that didn't bother me at all. I was like, oh, I've done this before. This is easy. So at that point, it's like, okay, I need to rehearse what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it. And then it was essentially like writing your own script. It's like, okay, what was the speech I gave? So I gave a speech on the Wolf of Wall Street. And it's like, okay, his business model was this, and it affected people this way. Certain aspects I had to explain. So I had to have a sort of neutral tone, but other times when I talk about, oh, hey, this guy scammed, so many people, I had to pause a lot more. I had to really let what I'm saying sink into my audience, because it's like, hey, a lot of people got scammed out of how much money. And so, the theater training really bled into the public speaking. And then I also took an acting class during my last year of my last semester of undergrad. I took an improv class and an acting class at the same time. And so I was getting a double dosage of that. And while I was in grad school, there were a few experiences that really got me to the social competence, for lack of a better term, that where I am now. One, I worked 3 restaurant jobs over the course of about a year and a half, non-consecutively. And I worked behind the bar. And I wasn't a bartender per se, but I was a bar back, which is like I got more ice. I got, I took out the trash. I got more liquor. I got more juices. I made the juices in some instances. Well, when I was behind the bar, if I wasn't cleaning glassware or whatnot, and if someone sat down, it was my job to, hey, get them a glass of water and say, hey, greet them. It's like, hey, how are you? And the place I worked at is a massive, massive sports bar right in the heart of downtown Dallas, right next to the sports stadium we have, which is where our professional basketball and hockey teams play. And so it's a hot spot for sports, on, football Sundays, on college football Saturdays, on nights where for the basketball and hockey teams play. And so while it wasn't my main responsibility to talk to guests that we had come in, I still had to talk to them. I had to think on my feet. I had to read them. The guests. I was like, oh, are they in a good mood? Are they sports fans? Are they hyped for the game that's on and whatnot? And I can just kind of feed off of that. And then other times, a guest will come in and say, hey, I need help with this because the parking near the sports bar is not great, not by a long shot. It's in downtown Dallas, so I remember an instance where this one guy came in and was like, hey, I'm meeting my wife here, but she doesn't know where to park. Where can I tell her to park? And I told her, oh, so I was familiar with the area, and I said, you can have her park here or here, which is closer, but it's more expensive. You can have her park over there, which is less expensive, but it's a walk. Or you could do over there, but it typically gets really crowded. You have to walk down a bunch of stairs or go in an elevator and whatnot. And then the guy took that information, he relayed it to his wife, and they found me later in the day and said, hey, my wife was able to park really quickly. And and he handed me a $5 bill, said, hey, thanks for that. He tipped me. And so that was a sports bar environment. Another restaurant job I had was I was also a bar back, but it was at a very fancy restaurant. And so the clientele is very different and the atmosphere is different. I don't like using the word vibe, but the vibe was different. And so I had to do everything I was still doing, getting more liquor, getting more ice, cleaning the glassware, not. But now I couldn't be as casual as there once was because, people have steak knives in front of them. They're entertaining guests. I saw a lot of famous athletes come in. You had to cross your T's and dot your I's a lot more. A lot of the mistakes that I could afford to make previously weren't acceptable anymore. And so it's the same thing. When the guest comes in, hi, here's a water. Would you like complimentary pretzel bread and or popcorn? Oftentimes the answer is yes. And so again, you have to read them. It's like, are they happy and are they chatty? Or are they kind of neutral? And they're like, yes, thank you. And if they're being polite, but not necessarily rude. And then other times they're going to get people who's like, yeah, whatever, just give me my usual. And it's someone I've never met. And like, I don't know what your usual is. And at that point, the bartenders are like, all right, just let us handle that at some point. And then I worked at a nightclub for about a month, and that was terrible. I don't want to there's nothing I really learned from that other than how much I hate nightclubs. So, and then when I was in undergrad and I also in graduate school, my bachelor's and eventual master's degree was both in public administration. The piece of paper says public affairs, but for all intents and purposes, it's public administration. So initially the goal was to be a city manager. I loved, one of my professors at the University of Texas at Dallas, which is where I attended. His name is Teodoro Benavidez, and he was the city manager of Denton, Dallas, and a third city that I'm blanking on. And so he was an absolute infinite wealth, an ocean of knowledge. And so I got to pick his brain on so many things. And he had so many stories of his interactions with the city council and whatnot that just really, really struck a chord with me. And on top of that, you get to look at a community development project and say, hey, I contributed to that. Or you can look at a new paved road and say, hey, I had a hand in getting that repaved and fixed and whatnot. And so in my undergrad, I had an internship and I had the pleasure of doing it with my hometown. My hometown is Colleyville, Texas, and I got to work for my hometown city manager. So that was incredible. That was a great experience. And I got to work with so many different departments and I got to learn so many different personalities. And I also got to learn the struggles and the successes and the opportunities that each department has and whatnot. And I get to learn, well, why do they work for city governments and one as opposed to like a private job, especially in city accounting. Like in the accounting department for the city, that was really interesting to hear, the numbers and theories that they apply to, fiscal budgeting and whatnot. And then, of course, the city manager having to interact and deal with the, city council folks, because sometimes the city council says, hey, do this beautification project. And the city manager says, we don't have the budget for that. So the city manager has to kind of navigate, how do I say this? And it's like, okay, this councilman, I could just tell him, hey, we don't have the budget for it, and they'll be fine with it. This person's like, well, we want to, but our priorities should really be here right now. And then, other city councilmen, you have to say, you know what, we will do that later. It is on the agenda. It's just, we got other stuff to do right now. So that was my undergraduate internship. And then my graduate level internship, it was a bit more loose, where I wasn't directly working with the city manager's department. I was working for the city manager's office, but I was spending each day with a different department of the city. So police, fire, IT, accounting. There was ordinance, city ordinances, and to make sure they're running wastewater. Oh my goodness. It's interesting. The people who work at those waste disposal plants that takes care of plumbing and whatnot, there's so much bacteria that it goes into breaking down the solid waste. That way the water can be cleaned and recirculated and whatnot. Apparently, long exposure to those bacteria actually helps a person's immune system in the sense that those people rarely get sick, which I thought was fascinating. But I also asked them, is the smell worth it? That's my question. Is the trade-off truly worth it? Because in my opinion, no, it's not. So,
Did they agree with you with that it's not worth it?
some did. Some did agree. Some were like, they got used to it, which I don't know how on earth you get used to such a smell like that. But
Nope.
so essentially, I forced myself to have jobs where I was forced to talk to people. Like, and I had to interact with them, and I had to work with different personalities and whatnot. That's why I say it was a trial by simmering fire, because it wasn't like I was a waiter or I was a bartender where like my job depended on how well I could talk to people, but it was still very much required of me to do so.
Well, and I think earlier you said it was a trial of continuous fire, which I got to tell you is absolutely going to be the name of this episode. So, Jake, write that down. I mean, to even amplify that point a little bit more, not all trials by fire are infernos. Some of them are just the room is like a little bit too hot and you've got to acclimate. And I think every time you can stretch yourself to an environment that's challenging you in some way, you get an important lesson. Some of it is, oh, here's what I need to adapt to do this job well. And some of it, like the nightclub gig, you're like, this is not for me. I'm also not a nightclub person. I remember being single in my 20s, like, let's hit the club. I'm like, or literally anything else. It's too loud. It's too much. I just can't there. And
The floors are sticky.
Yeah, the floors are sticky.
Floors are, God, why it's so sticky. And the bass is like boom, boom. Like I don't even. It's what little game I have requires me to be able to talk to people. And if every 10th word is all you get, then I didn't have a chance, right? So not a nightclub person.
Yeah, true. Quick true story. When I was working at the big sports bar for my birthday, a bunch of my coworkers took me out for my birthday, and we went to this Japanese barbecue place, which is very similar to a Korean barbecue. And afterwards, as a joke, because they were all buying me drinks and whatnot, and I don't drink nearly as much as I do back then anymore. But they were buying me shots because I was still young. I was still in college. They're like, "Oh, Mitch, do the shot!" Like, woo! And then a few of them kind of went to the side and were like, "Hey, so we should take Mitch to a nightclub just to see what would happen," because they knew I was on the spectrum at that point, and so they did take me to one, and I was pretty hammered going into it. I sobered up within 10 minutes. Like, it was everything you said. It was the bass. It was the flashing lights. It was the sticky floors. What is up with that?
Ugh.
Yes. Yeah. And so it was the sticky floors. It was the haze. Like, there was haze in the nightclub I went to. And it kind of kicked my ADHD into overdrive where it's like, I have to focus on so many things to acclimate to this environment. And so by the time I did get acclimated, I was still like, yeah, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. And so about 10 minutes later, they're like, yeah, this was somewhat entertaining, but we got to go. So.
And like, if this was a episode of like Atypical or Love on the Spectrum, right? Like, I'm wondering if that would feel like cruel or bullying. But the way you told that story, it felt almost more like we're like, oh, this would be fun to do. Did you read it that way, or were you like, I can't trust these people anymore?
I was very much in good fun. Like, I knew these people. We had like one guy kind of organized all of it, and like 20 people showed up for the Japanese barbecue dinner. And I was like, oh, guys, you didn't have to do this all this for me. And so they're like, Mitch, we did this because we love you. So like, yeah, it was in good fun. And I think I've mentioned to them previously, like, yeah, I've never been to a nightclub, and some of them have jokingly said, oh, we need to take you to one just so you can see it. And so that's probably what it was. In the back of their brain, they're probably like, hey, I'm very interested to see how Mitch reacts to this environment. But it wasn't malicious at all.
Was it worth the experience at least one time?
Yes. Yes, I can now, because now I know. It's like I have data to say, hey, I've been in this environment. I don't like this environment, so I have no desire to go back.
We do love data. We do love it. I know I just get this like very like Richard Attenborough voice, like, observe Mitch entering. What? There are females to his left, but I don't think he sees them because of the noise and the stickiness.
Notice how his eyes have widened and his pupils have dilated, despite the fact that he hasn't ingested any illicit and illegal substance.
Oh man, I gotta say, I would watch that show. I really would. I just find it Very fascinating.
Are you proposing a show specifically to follow Mitch, or just follow any neurodiverse person encountering a nightclub for the first time?
I'm going to say yes to both.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that would be, I mean, if Love on the Spectrum can be a thing, and I have some thoughts on that show in general, Clubbing on the Spectrum could absolutely be a show, right?
Clubbing on the spectrum.
You just get one like super rigid black and white autistic person show up with a club, like, no, down. You're like, oh.
I think a neurodivergent person, if they were to go to a club environment, like maybe a silent disco, just to get their feet wet, because it's on their headphones. They can take it off, they can adjust the volume, they can change tracks and whatnot. I've never been, so I don't know what it's like, but based on what I hear about it, sounds like, okay, this might be a good way to get your feet wet on that, if that interests you.
I chaperoned a silent disco dance once for a school for neurodivergent kiddos, and I loved it. It was such a vibe, and like I love that idea, and I think there really need to be more of them in general, right? I mean, just like let it be a thing. So, what a great idea! All right, Jake, do you want to ask your question about the book now?
Oh, yeah.
You're still thinking about silent discos, aren't you?
I am now. And like what music would be fun to have on your headphones, like what it would be like. Oh. Okay, so sorry, you said that your book title was something like growing up with Asperger's and like adapting to that and understanding it more. So what was it like for you writing the book and then the response afterwards?
So a trick I learned in graduate school was Microsoft Word has this tool now as well, but Google Docs at the time had this thing called voice typing. You hook up a microphone and then you turn on the voice typing tool, you speak in your microphone and it transcribes what you say. And at the time I was producing a sports podcast, so I already had the equipment, and then it cut down my essay writing time by a significant margin. So if any college kids are listening to this, use Google Doc and voice typing. Anyways, so I figured that was my main method for writing out the chapters. I would speak into a microphone because each chapter in the book is on a specific subject. And so I would just turn on the microphone, turn on voice typing, and I would speak on that subject for however long, and I would say everything I needed to say, or at least I felt like I needed to say. And then I would stop and then go back, make the editing changes that I felt were necessary, like punctuation, capitalization, maybe subbing out a word here and there. And I did that for about 7 chapters, and it began to feel like work. It began to feel like a chore. And so I got about 7 chapters into it, and then I hit this roadblock, and then a friend of mine that I met while working at the fancy restaurant, he was publishing his own book. And so one night I took him to dinner, and I asked, I was like, hey, what advice do you have for me? I want to get this thing out there, but it just feels like work. And so this person recommended me to hire a transcriber, which is someone who I would record audio messages of me, speaking on the chapter and whatever subject it was. And then I would send that clip to the transcriber for this person to then put it all on a Word document. And when I met this transcriber, initially, there actually was, this person did say, hey, there are artificial intelligence programs that do that for you. And I told this person, it's not perfect. It really does need a human ear and a human knowledge of, hey, here's what's going on. This person was not cheap, definitely cost a couple grand, but it was worth every penny. And so this person took each audio message and transcribed that into its own individual chapter. This person sent all of this to me. I then combined it to one giant Word document, along with the 7 chapters I'd already written. I then once again called up my friend who recommended the transcriber and said, hey, okay, it's ready. I need an editor. I need a publisher. I need all that stuff. And he recommended the publishing company he went with. And they brought me on, publishing and editing, then the initial sales boost, and then the cover design. That cost a couple of grand as well. And then there was 2 stages of editing. One was developmental editing, which is where the editor came in through and said, hey, you should rephrase this, or hey, you bring up this point, but you don't elaborate on it. You need to elaborate on this further. I think you should take out this paragraph entirely, and I think you should rephrase this, and so on and so forth. And then there was technical editing, which was, okay, this sentence needs to end here. This needs a punctuation mark. You need to switch out this word because it hits better and whatnot. And then once the editing was done, then came the cover design and then the publishing process. And so this whole thing took about a year from getting the transcription going again, because I had written 7 chapters and then I just abandoned it for like several months. It wasn't until I met my friend that, you know, my vigor to release this got going again. So from that to published date took about a year. Did that answer your question, or am I missing something?
No, I think you did. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then there was the paperback edition, and then there was the Kindle version, and then the audiobook version that I also went to my friend who has his own in-house recording studio because he's a voice actor by trade, amongst many other things he does. And I know he said, hey, Mitch, I'm going to give you the friend and family discount. You know, and by God, he did. Everything he did would easily cost at least $1,000, and he only charged me, well, not that. And I owe so much to this guy. His name's Jeff Savage. You can find him on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatnot. He has a book called Savage Resilience. I recommend it to everybody.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, no, Jeff Savage. He is an incredible human being. He runs marathons as a hobby, so that's how you know he's a little nutty in the head. I'm just kidding. He's an amazing dude. No, I can't speak highly of Jeff Savage enough. I owe so much to him. And the first signed copy of the book I gave to Jeff, and then the book has 3 dedications, and Jeff is one of them. So I owe so much to him.
I mean, that is such a cool story. And from my own experience for writing a book, it's weird because you get the sense of writing a book as this very solitary thing, like Hemingway, like in a chair by the window, pounding away. It takes so many people, editors and mentors. And I mean, I haven't done my own audiobook yet, but I know that's going to take a lot of help. And you're just playing all that out there as a person who is just laying out your process and helping a lot of people, saying like, oh, this is what success can look like here, leveraging your relationships, asking for help, learning from people in your circles. I mean, dude, you're just an inspiration. And I'm blown away by your journey. And frankly, I will be jumping on Amazon as soon as I'm done talking to you to buy your book. So,
thank you. Thank you very much. You're very kind.
As I say, basically once per episode, it's easy to say when it's true. You can stop rolling your eyes, Jake.
I'm not rolling my eyes. I just giggled a little bit.
Oh, man. All right. So, Mitch, as we come to the top of the hour here, we're going to ask you our wrap-up questions, and then we'll have you sort of send our audience home with some nuggets of wisdom. I'll start us off. So, if you could have any superhero on speed dial, who would it be and why?
Oh, that depends, man. Like, a part of me kind of wants to. I kind of want to talk to Spider-Man and ask him about his resilience and whatnot. It's like, hey, you know, there's a joke, there's a running gag within the comics community, which is Spider-Man is never allowed to be happy.
Yeah. And
so I would ask him, it's like, hey, how do you just keep going? How do you find it in you to keep going? And then I would call up Batman and say, you know, for a similar reason, which is, hey, you've described your mission as a never-ending battle. Like, how do you get up every night and go out and fight crime? And, you know, how do you have it in you to, you know, be the symbol of hope, with your goal being to rehabilitate those you can and punish those you can't with non-lethal means, obviously. But I think the best one that I could call right now is Superman. There's a website called TV Tropes, which talks about, you know, a bunch of different tropes you see in fiction, and they have a page called The Paragon, which, if you don't know what a paragon is, it's a Dungeons and Dragons term, which means like a Boy Scout, you know, a straight-laced, good for the sake of being good type of person. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but on this page, they have a picture of Superman flying over some people, and you can only see his shadow, but everyone's just looking up at him with varying degrees of happiness with him. And the caption says, Superman does not overshadow those he flies over, but he inspires them to look up. And I love that.
Dude. I mean, wow, you're making me emotional here. So what a great, damn. I'm not even a big Superman guy, and that's a great line. All right, Jake. Well, good luck topping that, buddy.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Sorry.
hard. No, you're good. And like, oh, you just had me thinking of like the Sisyphean aspect of it all. Like, oh, we keep doing the dishes, for instance, over and over and over again every single day. Like, how do we keep going? And like the idea, like, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Like, it's just central to all of that. So like, you're talking like my world with that as well. But my question for you is, what's your favorite word and why?
My favorite word? Well, it starts with an F and it rhymes with fire truck. I mean, it's crass, but it's the cold hard truth. Like, there's this old interview with Stan Lee, may he rest in peace, where he says how that word is the most versatile in the English language because you can use it in so many different ways. And so, you know, I try to not say it very often, but as anyone who spends 10 minutes with me will say, no, Mitch has a mouth of a sailor, but I do love that word. I love it. It's just so convenient and it's so versatile. You can really just use it in so many different ways. So I love it.
It is a fantastic word, just saying.
I'm playing the scene from Boondock Saints in my head right now. How the F did you two mother effers effing F? Oh, you've certainly illustrated the diversity of the word. Gosh, and we've got our pop culture reference. Also, I've heard that interview with Stan Lee, and we are big Stan fans here. Also, may he rest in peace. Man. Mitch, you are the most pleasant of surprises, my friend. I mean, I knew you were going to be awesome. I did not think you were going to be this awesome. And that's one of the best things about having a podcast and getting to meet people from different parts of the world that, like, I don't know if our paths would have ever crossed, but I'm so happy they did. So thank you for sharing your journey with us and your insights and tear-jerking Superman quotes. Whatever, it's fine. It's just dusty. But Mitch, if you could send our audience home with a piece of knowledge or inspiration, what would it be?
You're not alone. That's something I push in the book a lot, is that you're not alone. There are people that are maybe further on the spectrum than you are, that have more severe symptoms, or those that don't have any as severe symptom as you, but they had challenges, they had obstacles, they overcame them, and if they can, you can too. So you're not alone. That's not a bad thing.
And we try to echo that ethos by creating community, right? So let's give people places to gather and rally, and whether that's in books or on podcasts or people just chief of staffing the heck out of that company. But you're an inspiration, and you gave really tangible, concrete paths for people out there to get to where you are. And it just was a treat to hear your story. So thank you for being here with us. Okay, so for everybody here at Nerding Out on Neurodiversity, including our fabulous guest, Mitch, thank you for listening to this episode and being here with us today. We hope you're inspired and motivated and are thinking about Boondock Saints, not necessarily in that order. But as always, I'm your host, Dr. Matt Zakreski. With me, as always, is Jake. Say goodbye, Jake.
This was a fun one.
Fun, right?
Mitch, thank you. Thank you so much for this. And before we even say like goodbye, can you just let everybody know where they can find you if they want to like follow you on Instagram, LinkedIn, anything of the sort?
Buy his book. Buy his book.
And obviously buy your book, of course, 100%.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. The book, Kindle, paperback, and audiobook versions, they are on Amazon. Growing Up with Asperger's, Lessons Learned and Shareable Wisdom by yours truly. I also narrate the audiobook version, so it's my own words with my own voice. And then I am on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. Both my, I can't remember what my Facebook profile picture is, but it's my LinkedIn one is a, what's the word? It's a black and white picture of me. And so I'm active on both those platforms. So shoot me a message, say hi. I'd love to talk to you.
Well, go track down this awesome person and go buy his book. Authors got to take care of authors, right? And have an awesome day out there, podcast land, and we'll see you soon, okay? Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thank y'all.
Nerding Out on Neurodiversity is brought to you by Dr. Matt Zakreski and the team at the Neurodiversity Collective. To learn more about the Neurodiversity Collective or to be a guest on the podcast, please visit our website at www.theneurodiversitycollective.com/podcast. Audio and production by Jake Noonan. Show your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about us. Our Instagram and social media handles are at #NoonPodcast, NOON podcast. Your support is appreciated and keeps us going. All discussions presented on this podcast are strictly for informational purposes, awareness, and understanding. The advice presented is not and should not be considered to be therapeutic in nature. If you have any mental health questions, please contact your provider. All rights reserved.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.